All right, we had like 17 seconds on this jump.
That's all good.
All
We
right,
could we
baby.
gonna edit everything else.
Yeah, so we was talking about the whole like getting started, people like trying to get the business going and
Mm-hmm.
make sure that everybody knew like what are the next steps, because a lot of people have a lot of next steps, or like, all right, well, I want to do this idea versus that idea, but I don't really know where to start. So pretty much what this podcast is going to be about today is just about what are potential next steps for the people that want to get started. So my name is Alex. I have, I think, five businesses altogether, probably going on six. And so I'm just kind of getting the things scaling up one at a time, just kind of making sure that I get my foot in the door with a lot of different things. And so one of the things that I do is show people exactly how to either leverage their credit, how to leverage their network, how to leverage their resources, how to leverage just overall, what you have going on in life to kind of build that business up, because a lot of people just don't know, what's next, or a lot of people are afraid to take that next step. So in this podcast, got my man Demil here, and so what we're going to do is talk a little bit about that stuff. And he's got the mobile podcast where he kind of goes around to different people, introducing them to different ideas, or the audience to different ideas, to make sure that people know exactly the exposure and things that are out there. Because again, if you don't know, you're not going to try it. If you're not exposed to the idea, you're definitely not going to try it, right? But even more important than those two things, if you don't have somebody around you who's into those things, who can kind of guide you, or kind of show you the next steps and the ropes, you're really, unless you're risk averse like myself, you're not just going to go out there and do it, right? You're just going to be like, I'll wait, put it in the back burner, keep it in the back of my mind, and kind of go from there. So one of the things I was telling Damil, that we were talking about is score.org. And
Right.
so for me, I actually got in touch with the guy that I wanted, and he's actually in a roundabout way, he's in the transportation industry. And so I can use that and leverage it to my advantage. And so what score.org is, it's just a website where you can get matched up with a mentor. Most people don't know where to get a mentor at. They don't know how to go about that, how to like, hey, I want to get mentored by you. They don't really know the next steps for that.
And to find a trustworthy mentor as well.
Yeah, to find a trustworthy one, because like there's a lot of gurus out here, and like COVID really exacerbated a lot of that stuff out there, where people are just like, oh, I'm the guru of this and I'm this and do that, right? People were buying one house and saying, all right, let me show you how to get your first house and your next three houses, or something like
Exactly.
that. And they haven't even gone through a full year of having that first house, and so a lot of people kind of got tricked in that way of just like buying the course, buying the mentorship, and buying all these different things, and finding out that, oh, wait a minute, like this person's kind of like figuring things out the way that I'm figuring things out, and this is not the best route for me. So but yeah, most times I'll tell people like score.org, or go to Facebook events or Facebook groups, and Eventbrite, meetup.com. When you go to those events, there's people who are dedicated to like trying to help you out, right? They're also trying to get there to network, to build relationships and things like that. So when you're there in yourself and you're asking questions to these people, and they're just kind of like saying, hey, here's my journey, and this is the big one. The best way to like get on the road to that, the path to the mentorship, is just asking somebody what is their biggest headache. Because when you can come to them and say, hey, what is your biggest headache? And then they tell you what their biggest headache is. And then you like, okay, well, I'm going to take a mental note of that and then work on it in the background and come back to them a day later, 2 days, a week, whatever the time frame may be. And you come back and say, hey, remember that thing that was a big headache? What if I took care of that for you for free? Right. And when I got started, a lot of times I did a lot of things for free, because again, what people want to do is talk about themselves, but they also want their problem solved. And if you can be that person who solves their problem, you're going to add a lot of value to people. Whether or not they are older, younger than you, doesn't matter. I talk to people who are older and younger, and each time those people are just like, yo, this is insightful. Like, this is something that I need. But yeah, so score.org is another one where, like I said, you go on there, you do, what was it called? Like the mentor matchmaker or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So the mentor matchmaker, you go on there.
Gives you different options to what industry you want to be in.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah.
I really found it helpful.
Yeah. So, but yeah, you find out what industry you want to be on. You find out, what things you need help on. For me, it was like budgeting, marketing, digital marketing. It was like business structure, business plans, and all these different things. And I have all these ideas and stuff, but I need somebody who's at a higher level that can be like, wait a minute, why do you have this that way? Let's rearrange it, change it to this. So that's what score.org does. And then once you like go through and filter all those things, it'll match you up with potential candidates or potential mentors. And for me, I go on there, taking an extra step. I go to Google, I go to LinkedIn, and I Google these people and I say, all right, well, what is it that they do? What makes them so special? And how do we potentially align? So once we figure that out, we go on there, filter everything down. And now I'm like, all right, cool. This person's in this industry. They're kind of aligned with what I want to do. This is the next step that I want to take. And from there is just a message to that person. Follow up, follow up, follow up, follow up with these people. Don't just like send them a message. Most people probably send one message and just like, hey, I want to get started with you and leave it at that. The problem is that most people are busy throughout their day.
Exactly.
Like think
You
about
gotta go out there like you're going after a lead.
yeah, after a
Like you're
lead,
trying to
after
convert a
a
lead.
job you want, like
Exactly.
anything in life, you have to go ahead and be like, yo, like I want this that bad more than I think it was like David Ruffin. He was like, yo, you got to want it bad more. You got to want it worse than you want to breathe or something like that.
Yeah. What was that? I think it was E.T.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Eric Thomas.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Eric
yeah.
Thomas. Yeah.
He's like, you got to want it just as bad as you want to breathe, right? If
Mhm.
you don't want it that bad, you ain't want it. So
Exactly. That was the famous speech you be saying. You love sleep more than you wanna succeed.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah. So, and that's the thing is just like that's the big start right there, right? So, next thing I want to talk to people about is like finding your next steps is understanding like how you learn, right? There's a book out there called Limitless by Jim Quick, and Quick is Kwik. That is how you learn, right? So, all the actors, all the big name people, the presidents, and all these elite people go to him to figure out how to learn how to speed read, how to memorize more, how to sleep better, how to eat better, right? Because he's like the guy to go to figure that stuff out. So once you understand whether you're an auditory learner, a visual learner, a kinesthetic learner, I think it's is it three or four?
I'm not for sure. I haven't read that one as of yet.
Yeah, so it's one of the I think it's like three or four. And so what people do is they think about it from like a school perspective where it's
Mhm.
like you sit in a row, you sit in a class, you're just there for 2, 3, 4 hours, however long the class is, sometimes 30 minutes, and you just kind of like power through and just drudge through it and stuff. And you just have somebody throwing words at you. They might be writing on a whiteboard and saying, "All right, cool, we got a quiz on it next week." But most people are going to gravitate towards that because they may not be that type of learner. Somebody might need to watch a video on it and like see it. Somebody might need to be writing notes. Like there's girls that that had like 500 highlighters and they needed to like do all this stuff because that's how they memorize better. So understanding the type of learner that you are will take you so much further. And then once you have that idea of like, okay, well, I want to do more and kind of turbo everything. I say these are my book recommendations. These are just mine personally. Rich Dad Poor Dad. Rich Dad Poor Dad is just the foundational book to make sure that you know that there's more out there, right?
Mhm.
Outside of a 9 to 5. Once you read that, then it's this follow up book called Cash Flow Quadrant. With Cash Flow Quadrant, that's showing like there's different types of people in life. So there's 4 quadrants. One's an employee, one's a self-employed business owner and investor. But the primary focus of it is that there's certain people who work for money, and then there's people who have money work for them. And the people who have money work for them, then they can multiply their efforts by getting more people to work for them. And then that way they can add more value to the business and start scaling their business that way. On the other side, it's a 1-to-1. So your efforts equal this amount of money. In order to increase this, you have to increase your efforts or increase the amount of jobs that you have. And that can lead out to a lot more burnout because you're trying to do everything yourself, right? So that's the second book is Cash Flow Quadrant. Now that you have all these ideas of like, okay, I want to do this, I don't want to do that. I like this idea and I'm, limitless, right? The world is, my oyster and I have all these different possibilities and stuff like that. Now it becomes time to focus because when you look outside, the sun is showing like it's light on everything, right?
Right.
And so everything is lit up, right? But when you focus all that energy into like one small space, now it becomes a laser. Now it's deadly, right? Because it's very accurate, it's pinpoint, and it's just shooting at one thing and it's focused, hyper focused on that one thing, and you have that laser, right? So don't be the sun. Don't try to be like, all right, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this, right? Because what will happen is you start stretching yourself too thin, like I did, right? And I still do it from time to time. And I think we all do it because we're all just so excited about that shiny object syndrome. It's like, oh, that looks good, and oh, that looks good over here, right? And that makes money, right? But when you super focus, right, and become that laser, you accomplish so much more. And I'm only saying this from like pure experience. So a book to look into that is called The One Thing by Gary Keller, right? The guy in real estate who like does Keller Williams. Yeah. So having that is going to like really help you understand, oh, okay, I need to focus on this thing. And it kind of like dives into how to focus on the one thing. And I think he asked a question about like, if there is one thing that you could do that if you did it, it would make everything either easier or obsolete, what would that one thing be? Right. Mm-hmm. And when you start applying that to, well, if there's one thing for my job that I could do that would make everything else easier or obsolete, or my sleep, my eating, working out, my business, right? What is that one thing? And you start getting into that mindset of like, okay, all right, I need to focus my efforts on this. Like for this week, we're focusing on podcasts. We're focusing on videos and getting content for everything. And that's the focus rather than trying to do all these different things. And so a way to help organize that is to get it from out of here onto a paper, right? And so you have the intention journal?
I do have it.
Yeah. So the intention journal, there's a couple different ones where you have the Finisher's Journal by Brandon Turner, I think, and then the Finisher's Journal, which is like on Amazon. Both of them you can get on Amazon. Mm-hmm. But what it does is it helps you identify the top 3 things that you need to do in life. Or not in life, but for that day, right?
So what I love about the intentional journal, I haven't used the Finisher's Journal mm-hmm. as of yet. Mm-hmm. But what I love about the Brandon Turner's intentional journal is it gives you 3 90-day goals.
Yeah.
So you have like, what are your 90 days? What consider to be like your medium to long term goals. Mm-hmm. But then he breaks it down to, okay, I have my 90 days, but then I have my weekly goals. Right. And then he breaks it down even more. You have your daily planners. Mm-hmm. And so he makes it no excuse for you have, okay, what are your 90-day goals? Okay. So then we break it down week by week. And then we have our daily planners. So after every day, what did you do to move forward to reach your weekly goals? Right. And then your weekly goals multiply into your 90-day goals. So I love about that. That's what I love about that journal.
Yeah, and it just keeps everything structured. And I was listening to a podcast by Big Pockets, and they were talking about like, hey, they were interviewing a guy, and they were like, what's a way to, kind of identify your goals and stuff like that? And so he basically broke it down from a macro level to a micro level. So it looked like this. All right. So sometime in the future, that you're going to be successful. What does that success look like? Right. And so you ask that question. So the people came on, they were like, hey, I think it looks like this. Right. And having 10 houses, let's just say 10 houses. Right. So he's like, all right, cool. So sometime in the future, we know that success for you is 10 houses, which is going to bring in X amount of cash flow. Right. So now, okay, well, what would you need to do, in 10 years to be on pace to hitting that goal? They're like, well, we would need to have at least, I guess 8 houses or something like that. It's like, okay, cool. 8 houses and you're cash flowing X amount of dollars. Got it. What would you need to do in 5 years to be on pace to hitting that 10-year goal, right? You don't need to hit it exactly like that, but something along these lines will allow you to get to that 10-year goal. Right. So he did it again. He's like, all right, well, what do you need to do in the next 2 years? What do you need to do in the next year? What do you need to do in the next 6 months, 3 months? What do you need to do in this month? Right. Mm-hmm. To be on pace to hitting these goals. Right. And then he got to the point where it's like, okay, so now we know what we need to do for the month. What do you need to do this week to be on point to hitting that goal for the month, so that you can be on point for hitting it for the 3 month, the 6 month, the year, 2 year, the 5 year, and 10. And then he just keeps going down. He's like, okay, so what do you need to do? You know what you need to do for the week. What do you need to do today? And then it's like, oh, okay. All right, well, I need to do something small. I need to reach out to, a lender or a realtor or something like that to get the ball rolling. Well, what do you need to do within the next hour? It's like, well, I guess I can create a list of realtors and lenders that I may personally know. well, okay, what do you need to do now, starting now? And it's like, well, Google, I don't know. I guess I can just go to this thing. And so what it does is when you start from the ground up, right?
Mm-hmm.
It can cause anxiety because now you're trying to figure out, well, how do I get to this crazy step? And I don't know the first step. And that's what the whole point of this episode is figuring out the next step. And most people can't think of the next step because they're just so concerned about the end goal. Yeah. So, but when you work backwards and you say, okay, well, here's the end goal. What do I need to do in 10 years, 5 years, 2 years, a year, 6 months, 3 months, 1 month, 1 week, 1 day right now? Now it becomes manageable in bite-sized pieces. And people are like, wait a minute. If I put this domino here, I know it'll hit that domino and this domino and that domino. And eventually it'll lead me to that goal that I want to achieve. Mm-hmm. It may not be perfect, right, but the amount of progress that you'll start generating, right? And another good book to when you start getting into that point where it's like, I feel like I'm in a slump, is called The Compound Effect. I don't remember the author of that one, but The Compound Effect is about that principle of like, yo, the best time, I think it was like a saying, it's like the best time to plant a tree is today.
It was 10 years ago. But the second best time is today.
Yeah, that one. That one, right? The best time was 10 years ago. The best time now is right now, right? Because if you say, oh, well, I'm going to wait for XYZ to happen, it'll never be the perfect storm, right? It's the equivalent of saying, what I don't want to move or I don't want to drive until I know that every light on my route is green. So I can just go straight through. It'll never happen. Somewhere along that line, by the time you get from one green light to the next light to the next light, it's going to turn yellow. It's going to turn red. The light might not even work. Right. So now you got a detour. There might be construction on the road. You're definitely going to have the detour, right? And so that's what you have to approach life with, which is just understanding that everything is not going to line up perfectly. But when you have this crossroad of opportunity and being prepared and executing, right, and planning, strategizing, right, you're planning to strategize, to execute, and you're prepared and you're ready to go, right? And that opportunity comes at that right time. When you come to those four crossroads, now you have that golden opportunity when things start meshing, right? And so for me, just to give a little bit background into it, I know we're a couple minutes into it, but for me, I got started into a lot of stuff during COVID, right? I had graduated in 2019 from Towson in Baltimore, Maryland. And so I left that, was doing Uber and Lyft. That was my main source of income, right? Because I was like, oh, I'm gonna hit it big in the stock market. I was doing options. I was doing some law stuff where I was like, oh, I'm gonna do these lawsuits and I'm gonna make it big, right? None of that went through. And so I was at a point where I was like, you know what? This is not going through. My ex at the time, she was like, yo, this is not looking good for you. You need to get a job. And I was just so against the idea of having a job. And I think that a lot of people who are young are very against that idea of having a job. Because you're just like, nah, I'm gonna work hard, I'm gonna grind, I'm gonna, put in these hours. If I'm not working, then there's more time to dedicate to this thing and or this mission that I have. But they fail to realize that there's a lot of stuff that becomes very expensive. Mm-hmm. Day-to-day living, your bills, healthcare, dentist office appointments, the doctor office appointment, right? If you're young, you can skip those things for a little while, but eventually they're going to catch up to you. And, trying to go out and enjoy life. Because what the road to success in entrepreneurship is not like this. It's like this, and you come up a little bit and you go down. Yeah, it's a lot of hard hitting realities that you're going to face, and you're just like, bro, this is not what I thought it was, right? And you become so like not spiteful, but you're just kind of like, why is this not working out? And it's just one more step, and I should be right. And then you get it, and you're just like, what is wrong? Why is it not working? And you become so frustrated with the process instead of trusting the process and understanding that the key to wealth and longevity, the key to wealth and success is longevity and having, the success compound over years, right? These guys that you see on social medias, social media is not everything you think it is. There's so many people.
I was going to ask you that. Like, do you think people get upset because they're comparing where they are now with what they see their favorite influencer are. You know, they're driving Ferraris, Lamborghinis, G wagons. They're living in expensive houses. They're traveling.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and but you feel as though, like, say I'm going to use me for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I have a regular 9 to 5 job,
Right.
and so but you know I dreamed of being one of those influencers, like having that lifestyle, but you know I'm not there yet.
Life
So
happens. Yeah.
exactly right.
Yeah.
So you know I'm comparing myself today to where, let's say, your favorite influencer, whatever, pick one, and where they are, and you know I'm frustrated. I'm not content
Because
so,
they doing it at 22 and you
exactly
older.
right.
It's like, why am I not successful? And what am I doing wrong? And then how is this dude doing it at 22, 23 years old? Got a house, a Lambo, a Ferrari, a Corvette, a yacht, blah, 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 chains dripped out, all this other stuff, traveling 5 times a week, right? And it's like, what you don't see is that like there's a lot of things on the back end. And I'm just in the same boat, right? I'm trying to get into that. I keep tiptoeing back and forth between that lifestyle of like, do I want to be an influencer? Do I not want to be an influencer? So just I'll get to that in a second. I'm gonna continue the background just so people have an understanding of like what's going on. So graduated 2019, Uber and Lyft. Thought I was going to make it in entrepreneurship. Fell flat on my face. Got into selling cars. Lowest point of my life. And then I left that to go wholesale real estate in February of 2020. I was like, all right, cool. We're going to start making money, doing good. I had houses on the contract. I'm like, bet I'm making I think I was making like 7 to 11% per deal that was going on. And I was super excited for this because this was going to plan out to be, more money than I thought I was going to be making at selling cars. Next month happens, COVID. Nobody's buying a house. Nobody's selling a house. Nobody's doing nothing. I'm out of a job, right? Because I'm frustrated that I'm not getting paid. I'm frustrated because no jobs coming through, no deals coming through. I'm out. So I'm like, all right, bet. I had to bite the bullet at this point because now I have no job. I have no income. I'm not doing Uber and Lyft. I don't want to go back to the lifestyle because, it got to a point where it's just sitting too much. So I got into, IT, cybersecurity, and that's where I started like really building very, very fast, right? So I think I had gotten my first job in IT, and I think 7 months after that, I got my next job. And then a month after that is when I started saving for a house, right? So things went very, very quickly. And then I got to a point where I was able to start renting out cars, and in addition to, finally getting a house. So I got my first business car in January of 21 last year. Next month, I got my house. Month after that, I got 2 more cars, and then and a Tesla. And like a few months after that, I had gotten 3 cars in a day, and on top of that, I got an Audi R8, my dream car, right? So now I have about 7 or 8 cars, my Audi R8. So I sold the Tesla again to the Audi R8, and now life's good, right? Allegedly. And so this is what I was talking about, the whole like social media thing where it seems like it's going great. But what people don't realize is like at that time, like I was going through like everything, right? In April of last year, I had rats, mice, and water coming into my house in like April, May. And I was trying to like get everything going. And I was like, yo, I don't have enough money coming in to support this lifestyle that I built. I have the Tesla, I have a house, and I got, all these other cars that I may or may not be renting. And so now I got to like rack up credit card debt. Mm-hmm. Right. And the crazy thing is that most people don't realize that most people, 7 out of 10, this is a stat, 7 out of 10 people do not have $1,000 to their name. Like they cannot pull $1,000 right now. And it's a sad stat, but it's a very real stat. And so what does that tell you? Most of these people on Instagram, on Twitter or X, right? They're millionaires somehow, but 7 out of 10 people don't have the money. So it's like the math is not mathing here. So now it's like, okay, well, what's really going on? Well, the thing is that there are people who make money from social media, but most of it is just a lifestyle where it's just like, you ever seen somebody take a picture in front of a car that they don't own? I'm a victim of this as well. Like I've done it in front of Bentley. But when they put it on social media, it's like, oh, whoa, yeah, you the man. Congratulations, da, 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 right? because you go find another car and just keep posting pictures with this car, and now everybody thinks it's your car, right? But the whole time you're just taking quick flicks of it and then just kind of pushing on. And that's the thing about social media, is that it creates this illusion that everybody either is a guru, like we were talking about earlier. Everybody knows what they're talking about. Everybody's financially wealthy. Everybody's, retired, under 30 years old. And it's all these extra stuff. And it's like, it creates this false illusion. And our mind is just like, well, damn, I'm not doing enough, because dude over here is 23, 24, 25 and has his dream car and dream house and everything else. And I don't have nearly half the stuff, right? I still got to go into the office to work. I still, have X amount of hours for leave and right? What am I doing wrong? And it's not that. Everybody has to understand that you're running your own race, right? You're running your own race against yourself. The question should not be, why am I not stacking up to this person? The question should be, how am I comparing to what I was doing last year, right? Are you in a better position, or are you more aligned with what your goals and your morals are? Are you more aligned with those now than where you were last year, right? That's the question that you need to be asking, because again, right, everybody sees all the success, right? They see me, they're like, oh, he's got a house, he's got exotic cars, he's around them all the time. I was just out there yesterday racing 28 exotic cars and foreigns yesterday, right? So I'm not just talking it, I'm actually living this stuff. And so now it's like, okay, well, how do I get to that point? Like, what do I do, right? And most people just don't know, like, what do they do? And again, it's about the consistency, and they see all this glitz and glam, right? And so ultimately, my point is this. My mentor told me this story. It was about the story of the bamboo, right? Because everybody sees everything here, but what they don't see is the past failures and things that didn't go right. So the story went along a little something like this, and it's just a paraphrase. It was a farmer. He went out, planted some seeds, and every day he would water them, come back to the same spot and water them, right? And people would come out, laugh at him, ridicule him, and be like, yo, what are you doing? Like, this is stupid. You have nothing to show for it. You did all this work and you have nothing to show for it. And now you're a failure. Dude over there, he planted something. It grew up and, grew a little high. And now he's like the instant success. He's the talk of the town, right? So this guy comes out, he keeps watering every day, for 5 years straight. And, he's doing all this work. On the 5th year, though, right, where he still had no results, well, on the 5th year, they shot up 3 feet a day until they hit 90 feet, right? Now, all of a sudden, everybody's like, yo, look at him. He's the talk of the town. This guy's an overnight success. I remember it was just yesterday, he planted all these seeds, and now look at him. He's got a beautiful forest and everything, right? And so the point of the story is that everybody thinks that you're overnight success, but what they don't see is the past years of failures, the heartaches, the crying, I ain't got the money, the grind. Yeah, the everyday grind. It's the everyday grind, right? And so people also get frustrated because they're like, well, when is it going to be my turn? Such and such person had, their turn. When is it going to be my turn? But what you don't realize is like the work that they put in. It might have been a perfect storm for that person, right? Because I used to be the same way. I'm like, why is this person doing well and I'm not? And then I'd be like, I would see their story and they're like, yeah, I had a kid, I had death, this and that happened. I'm like, whoa, that they was going through some stuff. Mm-hmm. And it forced that person to have their back against the wall to then basically say, yo, look, I have to make a decision. So I want to wrap this up because I want to keep it under 30 minutes. But basically, like I said, you got the books, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Cash Flow Quadrant, Limitless, The One Thing, and The Compound Effect. With those, you cannot miss, right? Because it's going to teach you the mentality that you need to have. It's going to teach you the mindset that you need to have, the structure, the organization. And then we get all that stuff together, put it into a journal. I just got the iPad, as you saw. I'm going to try to start using that a little bit more, but Intention Journal or the Finisher's Journal, both are available on Amazon, or you can just Google it. Once you have all this stuff starting to get out of your head and onto paper, now you can visualize it and you can start working on your things, right? Now for the mentor side, score.org, Eventbrite, and meetup.com. Go to the events, talk to people, understand what is it about their life story that makes them interesting. Just keep asking them about their life story. and, identify their pain points and identify ways that you can, alleviate their pain points. You either have the time, the energy, or the money, and it's very rare to have all three. If you can use your time and your energy when you don't have the money to help someone's problem, that doesn't matter because now you're adding value to that person. Most people who are older have the money and the time, but they don't have the energy. Utilize your youth to add value to their life. And then if you're older, utilize your resources, your networking, your money to help that next generation come up. So again, my name is Alex, the Jack of all trades. You can follow me on Instagram at _AJTHE and then the number 1. Outside of that, DM me with any questions. You are listening to the Mobile Podcast. Let's go.